Good morning, everybody. We're ready to get started with the all-panel meeting. Good morning. My name is Mark Smitherman. I'm the Deputy Director for the National Shipbuilding Research Program. Our first item up this morning is opening remarks from Steve Duca, the Executive Director for the National Shipbuilding Research Program. In this role, Steve is the primary interface between the 11 members of the Executive Control Board as well as the NAVSEA NSRP Program Manager. Prior to joining ATI in 2018, Steve consulted for the NAVSEA and for U.S. Coast Guard in depot maintenance and modernization planning. Prior to that, he had a 27-year career in the U.S. Coast Guard that included acquisition, design, and operations, and culminated as the 38th Commanding Officer of U.S. Coast Guard Shipyard, Baltimore. Please welcome Steve.
Thank you for that introduction, Mark. Good mid-morning, U.S. East Coast, early morning, U.S. West Coast, and really early morning for our registrant from Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard in Hawaii. In fact, we even have some international registrants from other far-flung time zones. Wherever this virtual meeting finds you physically, I hope you're well, and we're glad you're here. I'm Steve Duca, the NSRP Executive Director. On behalf of the Industry Executive Control Board, the NAVSEA Program Office, and the O&R Mantech Program, welcome to the 2021 Biennial NSRP All-Panel Meeting. We had a really great venue lined up for this event. Because of the popularity of Charleston as a tourist destination, we actually locked in the Charleston Convention Center almost 2 years ago. Like many face-to-face events over the last year, we monitored the COVID-19 pandemic and had to switch to a virtual event. We've already booked the Convention Center for our 2023 event. For any super planners out there in the audience, the dates are 27 to 31 March 2023. Despite the virtual format, we believe we developed a robust program over the next 4 days. As of this recording, there were almost 500 registered attendees, the most ever for this gathering. A review of the registration list is quite impressive for the depth, breadth, and diversity of attendees. As many of you veterans of this event know, the all-panel meeting is co-sponsored by the U.S. Navy Office of Naval Research Manufacturing Technology, or Mantech program. We are pleased that our Mantech R&D brethren and your stakeholders are here this week. In fact, as our tight-knit shipbuilding and ship repair community knows, many Mantech stakeholders are simultaneously NSRP stakeholders. So they don't forget, let me acknowledge and thank the Herculean efforts of the NSRP Panel Coordinator, Ms. Caroline Mueller, the NSRP Extended Team Manager, responsible for all our program events, Mr. Nick Laney, my deputy, Mr. Mark Smitherman, the NAVSEA NSRP Program Manager, Mr. Eric Aller, and his government team, my company's event planning and IT departments, the entire O&R Mantech team, government and industry, and especially our Mantech liaison for planning this event, Ms. Denise Piastrelli, the Executive Control Board, all our project presenters, and last but certainly not least, the NSRP panel officers, for all the hard work that went into developing, recording, and preparing for this event. One of my challenges for us for the next 4 days is how do we act upon what I believe is common knowledge, that in our world's current geopolitical and U.S. fiscal environment, it's essential that we leverage every advantage we can muster to serve our ultimate customers, the sailors who go in harm's way and the American taxpayer, to find the synergies and eliminate unnecessary duplication. To that end, what early technology readiness level NSRP project would make a great project, if not fully implemented under NSRP, to follow on as a Mantech project or vice versa? This all-panel meeting, like the biennial Mantech ShipTech event held in even years, offers an unparalleled opportunity for technology transfer between industry experts in the various maritime technical disciplines. Despite the virtual limitations, pick each other's brains, learn something new, meet a fellow industry professional in the other program. To prime the pump, we're pleased to have several distinguished keynote speakers this morning. All of this morning's keynote addresses were taped in advance. However, we will have a live Q&A session at the end of all presentations with the Industry Executive Control Board Chair, the NAVSEA NSRP Program Manager, and the O&R Mantech Program Officer. For the Q&A, please type in to whom your question is intended and the question itself, using the Zoom Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. My company, ATI, will collate and pick the most representative questions to answer as time allows. Then we'll take a short break around lunchtime, U.S. East Coast again, and return for a presentation on a new NSRP program element, the Rapid Adoption Project. Next, there will be a relatively brief overview of the state of each NSRP panel and each Mantech Center of Excellence. We'll wrap up the first day with a presentation from Dr. Justin Retaliata, the NAVSEA Technical Warrant Holder for Additive Manufacturing. Clearly, additive manufacturing is a high priority R&D for our community. Tuesday through Thursday, each NSRP panel will conduct an individual panel meeting with normal business and presentations of both NSRP and Mantech projects related to that panel's technical discipline. Mantech will also be various platform integrated product team meetings simultaneously. At a typical face-to-face NSRP all-panel meeting, attendees had to pick and choose which panel meeting to attend, usually at the expense of another running simultaneously. This year's virtual format allows fewer panels to run concurrently, and we hope you'll like that improvement. Okay, thanks for hanging in there. Just a few more administrative matters, and then we can get to the program. First, at a face-to-face event, we'd have an exhibit hall and all sorts of interesting show and tell with dedicated time for one-on-one discussion. Well, we're experimenting with the virtual equivalent of that technology transfer during this week's event. We have a virtual poster session, and you will find in your agenda how to access these posters and the means to communicate with the project teams. Second, usually at an event like this, we would have a survey, and we would ask about the physical amenities of the venue and the content and the conduct of the technical program. Well, we still haven't developed a survey, and I urge you to take some time to fill it out during the sessions you attend. There's a link in the agenda, and we'll also send it out after the event to everyone who's registered. The physical amenities are yours, so I hope you like your office, your home office, kitchen table, or wherever you've set up shop. But we are interested in learning how the Zoom for Gov meeting platform works for you in this event. I'm personally hoping that my Zoom skills atrophy a bit as a result of getting back into face-to-face engagement more often. And most importantly, we seek your feedback on the technical content of this all-panel meeting. Thank you in advance for taking the time to give us your feedback to continue to improve the value of this event to folks like you and your peers. Third, while I expect your Zoom prowess, like mine, is greatly increased from a year ago, here is some important info on how to navigate this multi-day event on the Zoom platform. There is only one link to either the general session today or to each specific panel meeting on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So once you click into the meeting, you're in till you leave. ATI will have a Zoom Central manned in the background for the entire event. If you need assistance, please use the chat function in Zoom or email nsrp@ati.org, and please include your contact info. We'll reach out to you to assist as required. One reminder for the panel meetings. All the pre-recorded presentations are releasable in the public domain. NSRP prides itself on the amount of technology transfer we can achieve in our panel meetings. But since they are live events, I ask everyone to remember that there will be foreign attendees in the panel sessions, and you should treat any export-controlled or other controlled unclassified information appropriately. Okay, we're there. I'm also the warm-up act for the main event. 2021 is the 50th year of existence for the National Shipbuilding Research Program. I've pre-recorded a narrated slideshow with a bit of history of the first 50 years of NSRP. Thanks for being an integral part of the 2021 NSRP all-panel meeting. I hope you enjoy a brief trip down NSRP's memory lane. Mark, roll tape. Good morning and welcome again to the 2021 NSRP all-panel meeting. I'd like to spend a few minutes recapping the first 50-year history of this unique program. Here are some historical source documents on the program. I want to specifically call your attention to the Green Starred NSRP website, which contains a wealth of current program information. And before I leave this slide, I want to acknowledge that the NSRP Executive Control Board Chair, Mr. Don Hammondike, developed several of these slides for his June 2020 Society of Naval Architects and Marine Engineers webinar, and I borrowed them, so I'm thanking Don, and he thanked a whole bunch of other people you can see at the bottom of the slide. Okay, so a little about the program's origin. In the early 70s, the federal government reduced the payment from the government, specifically MARAD, to the commercial market of construction differential subsidies. To help the industry deal with those reductions, in amendments to the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, they called for establishment of a collaborative government industry research program to assist shipbuilding industry and improve its productivity. MARAD sent a couple gentlemen over to the Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish shipbuilders associations, where they found and reported out that the Scandinavians voluntarily entered into partnerships and relationships for various purposes, particularly research with the support of their governments. As a result, MARAD initiated a research program that would be based, quote, on collaboration with shipbuilders in developing plans for the economical construction of vessels. This program came to be called the National Shipbuilding Research Program. Over the last 50 years, there have been several government oversight agencies and funding sponsors. As you can see in the beginning, MARAD provided government oversight for the program and its funding. And as the government oversight organization changed, one thing that was somewhat constant was that the funding source through the 80s and much of the 90s was either Mantech program alone or Mantech program and others. In 1998, NAVSEA became the government oversight agency for this program. And the NAVSEA program office has bounced around a bit in the NAVSEA hierarchy over the last 2 decades. It currently resides in NAVSEA 05, the Naval Systems and Engineering Directorate. Another new feature of NSRP at this time was the establishment of a new governing entity, the Industry Executive Control Board. Here's the original Articles of Collaboration. You can see the 9 original member shipyards of the ECB. What's unique here, however, is that the industry ECB is the governing body for the program. Over the last 22 years of ECB governance with NAVSEA partnership, there have been 10 NAVSEA program managers and 13 ECB chairs. Perhaps some of these maritime professionals are peers or mentors you recognize. But this high-level commitment and engagement by both industry and government leadership is evident. In addition to the program office, the government has an NSRP program executive at the SES level, Mr. Jim Kenny, who we'll hear from soon. And the ECB participation is typically at the vice president level. Going back to the 1985 SNAME Journal of Ship Production article by Baxter Barham, and to clarify, some of this history is pre-ECB. You see on the left the linkage of SNAME to NSRP. In 1970, SNAME added a ship production committee to its technical and research program. On the right, you see that same ship production committee, also its panel structure, the sponsor firms, and note that not all of the sponsor firms were ECB members. And at the far right, that MARAD was the contract management office, and that MARAD and later Navy provided funding. So here again is that original panel structure on the left, and on the right, this is what things look like today. We still have the funding sponsors from the government, all from the Department of the Navy. We still have the Executive Control Board as the governing body. And now there's a program administrator hired by the ECB to manage the program. Next down you see what we refer to as the extended team, which consists of all the industry program leadership outside of the ECB. We have 4 major initiatives that the program is broken into that you can see here: ship design and material technologies, ship production technologies, business processes and IT, and infrastructure and support. These major initiatives have major initiative team leads. There are also NSRP shipyard delegates, project technical representatives who function like government COTRs in project oversight, and the panel officers for the 9 panels you see and 1 digital shipbuilding committee. But the takeaway is the structure largely remains. It's also worth noting that the STAMI Ship Production Committee Chair is the Executive Control Board Committee Chair, and the 9 NSRP panel chairs constitute the STAMI Ship Production Committee. Looking at the ECB membership, again since 1998, and pardoning some name changes and a few corporate restructurings, of the original 9 members, 6 remain, 2 have morphed into other companies, and 1, Avondale, is gone. And there have been 6 new members added to the collaboration over time, 3 of which remain active today. And along with our snappy 50th anniversary logo, you can see the NSRP members are still industry leaders in shipbuilding and ship repair. So over the last 2 decades, what has the program accomplished? The original joint funding agreement between the Industry Executive Control Board and NAVC ran for about 20 years. Over that time, the program completed 135 major projects where the government provided about $161 million in funding and the industry provided $180 million in cost share. And if you're not familiar with what the term cost share is, stand by because we have that in a future slide. The program also completed 235 panel projects to the tune of another $25 million for a total of 370 projects and $365 million in funding. And those 370 projects are captured in the NSRP project portfolio. I'd like to play a video clip now showing interested viewers how to see and thus use this already paid for R&D effort.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Mueller, and I am the panel coordinator here at NSRP. And I just wanted to take a second to show you how to find our portfolio items on our website. First, please go to our website at nsrp.org, then over to R&D projects, and it'll give you a drop-down arrow of options to click on. Then click Portfolio. And this will open up our entire project portfolio. First, we start off with our RA projects or our research announcement projects that are categorized by 4 major initiatives, as you can see here. Below that, we have our panel projects that are categorized by our 9 panels. And these also include a few panels that we had broken down into for 2017 and 2019. These were from previous panel structures and that we have since combined into a few different panels. Next, you'll see the Commonality working group. This is an ad hoc group that didn't quite make it to a panel, but we still have some projects in this group in this portfolio. And finally, we have projects by year. Now, these are all of the projects that we have from 1999 until now. From 1999 to 2003, we just had projects. There was no specified panel projects. Panels didn't come around until after 2003. And now that you know how all of our portfolio items are split up, let's find a project. Say I would like to find an electrical technologies panel project from 2019. First, I go up here to electrical technologies. Click on the panel project link over here to 2019. To the project I want, Fusion Splice Enclosure Add Equipment. And so I click on this specific project, and it brings me to the project's portfolio page. And now I also would like to request a final report from NSRP. To request your final report from NSRP, please go down to the portfolio's bottom of the page and find the tab that says Request Final Report. And notice next to it the approval release that is assigned to this portfolio item. This particular one is for public release, so anyone is able to request this final report, but not all are approved for public release. And you need to make sure that you are in this data category if you are requesting a final report. So to go ahead and request that final report, we want to go ahead and click on this link here. And what this is going to do is prompt us to email nsrp@ati.org. In the subject line, we need to go ahead and put the name of the project whose final report we are requesting, and that we are requesting a final report. In the body of the email, please put why you are requesting the NSRP final report and any information about yourself that you think would be useful in helping ATI know that you're able to receive this final report. Now, as I said before, if distribution is limited to a certain group of people, ATI will have to take that extra step and verify that you are able to receive this project's final report. Now, once you press the send button here, this will go to us and specifically our admin's inbox, and she will give you a reply as soon as she can that she's received your request. Please give her a week to complete this request, as it depends on where the final report is located. Newer projects are a little easier to find, while older projects are a little harder to find as they are stored on some different servers here at ATI. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your patience when requesting final reports. Have a good rest of your day.
So hopefully you'll check out our project portfolio. Another NSRP requirement, although not unique to the program, is cost share. Recall that earlier asterisk. The industry has put over $180 million in cost share into the program in the last 20 years and continues to put cost share in under the new JFA. The written governing document for NSRP between government and industry is the Joint Funding Agreement. The Joint Funding Agreement is actually a relationship called an Other Transaction Authority. OTAs are governed by 10 U.S.C. 2371. What an OTA means is that NSRP is not a FAR-based program. FAR and DFAR requirements must be specifically cited in the JFA to apply. It also means that there must be cost share. Another document I have here for you is the Other Transactions Guide. This is the latest version, which gives a pretty good summary of what OTAs are about. And finally, at the bottom, I have an excerpt from the Joint Funding Agreement, which notes for cost share that the goal is for industry to share 50% of the cost of technology development, think projects, and technology transfer activities, think the panel meetings and the all-panel meeting and other events that NSRP participates in. But again, this is a unique industry-led program via the ECB with government input. The government puts up half the funding, industry puts up equivalent in cost share. If you're interested in cost share, then please go to the NSRP website and click on the Resources tab, Solicitation Resources, and look at the Base Task Order Agreement and the Cost Proposal Guidelines. There's lots more information there for anyone who's not familiar with cost share. Finally, another great place to keep up with the program is NSRP's LinkedIn page. Now, my staff assures me that if you click your phone and take a picture of this QR code, it will take you right to that LinkedIn page. And I'm hoping that many of you are already NSRP followers on LinkedIn, and that for those of you who aren't, we might be able to get up over 2,000 followers by the end of the week. So that was a very quick look at the last 50 years of NSRP. I hope you enjoyed it, and now we'll get into the rest of the program.
Thank you, Steve. Our next keynote speaker this morning is Rear Admiral Casey Moton. Admiral Moton is the Program Executive Officer for Unmanned and Small Combatants. In this role, he is responsible for the acquisition and sustainment of the ever-expanding family of maritime unmanned mine warfare and small combatants. He qualified as a surface warfare officer on USS Monterey. As an EDO, he's been involved in all aspects of ship construction, design, and acquisition, including tours at Soup Ship Pascagoula and at Soup Ship Marinette. He's been responsible for 2 major acquisition programs, including DDG 51. He assumed command of PEO USC on May 2019. Please welcome Admiral Moton.
All right. Good morning, NSRP. This is Admiral Casey Moton. I think, as you know, I'm the PEO for Unmanned and Small Combatants here at the Washington Navy Yard this morning. And I'm really honored to be able to have this opportunity to speak to NSRP. So thank you. So I want to thank NSRP for the invitation, both on the industry side and the Navy side. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. First of all, I wish it could be in person, as I know you all do, but COVID. Soon enough, I hope that we will be able to do these again in person. And I know that more and more of us have been able to get the vaccines, and like everybody there, I hope that we'll be able to get back to some sense of normalcy and being able to have these interactions and to better interact with each other. But until then, it is what it is, and so we'll make the best of it. Speaking of COVID, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the important work that you and your shipyards do for the country and have done in COVID. It's truly mission essential, critical work for the country, keeping our defense industrial base moving, producing ships, repairing ships, designing ships, making sure that all that's gotten done really without, in a lot of cases, without any real huge impact. I mean, some impacts, but overall have kept the work going. And that is a huge deal and just unbelievably complex. And so I want to take this opportunity when I'm speaking to representatives from the various shipyards to say thank you again for that. I'll also say at the beginning, I wish I didn't have to do this recorded. I enjoy question and answer, and I would have liked to have done that and have the discussion. But unfortunately, schedules just didn't work. And so I appreciate NSRP's willingness and flexibility to accommodate me in this. So thank you. And I hope everybody is doing well. So just at the beginning, beyond the COVID work, specifically for NSRP, you all that are involved in NSRP and the teams that support you back at your yards and establishments are doing incredibly important work. You are advancing and improving ship design and shipbuilding and ship repair, and really, focused on the process aspects and making it more efficient and newer and better ways of doing things. And it's incredibly important to our industry. So thank you very much for that. Shipbuilders are a special group. We always often say shipbuilding is a contact sport. I know, and I speak, in terms of ship repair certainly as well, but it's a special group of all of us, and we all have different agencies and companies we're working for, but we also all know it's a team sport. And I'm proud to count myself as a member of this true team sport from the Navy. So thank you for all you're doing. And kind of along those lines, I wanted to start actually by briefly recognizing and memorializing a true leader in our shipbuilding industry that we've lost recently. And that's Terry O'Brien from Austell, right? And Terry has a history there. And I know, I don't think Terry was directly involved with NSRP to my recollection, but I'm sure that many of you in the meeting knew Terry, as did I and many on the Navy side. And truly, Terry was a true professional, cared very much about, where he worked, but shipbuilding in the broader sense. And so, maybe not NSRP, but of course, Terry was a president of the Shipbuilder Council of America. And so he truly believed in the importance of the industry. And I think that's hand in glove with what NSRP does. And, we were very proud and honored to work with Terry, a professional and just an all around great guy. And we recently lost Terry to cancer, and, just unbelievably sad. And so our condolences here to his family. But all of you that had the opportunity to work with Terry, I wanted to start by passing that along too as well. And so I appreciate the ability to do that to the forum. And Terry's and his family are definitely in our thoughts and prayers, and we're gonna miss him. But I thought it was important that we could think about that for a minute and remember Terry and his contributions. I'll start out from the beginning by saying to you that I am a fan of NSRP, right? And I know in total forthrightness, and you all have heard this and are certainly aware that there are some out there who are skeptics, and we'll talk about why that is. I am not a skeptic, right? Do I believe that we all need to demonstrate our value and show that we're improving efficiency and being able to design, build, repair ships more cost effectively? Absolutely, right? I think that it's incumbent on us to do that. But I also believe very strongly in the value of conducting research and development in this field, which is, really in some ways, probably uniquely focused on the process itself in design, build, and sustain. It's my opinion that without NSRP, I'm not sure it would get accomplished at all. Individual companies would still do things if they had the resources to do it, but certainly as a team, I don't think it would get accomplished. I don't think we would make nearly as much progress as we do make if we tried to do it individually. I feel like some companies that are not able to be involved because of resources or bandwidth, right, would not benefit. And at a bottom line, I also think that we get more projects done because of NSRP, and we're able to cover a wider breadth of areas. And then we're able to cost share that effort, so it's not as expensive as each of us having to do that research. And that allows us to be more efficient and to share in the fruits of the research. So, personally, I'm a fan. I think, as I kind of alluded to, that most of the skeptics on NSRP are skeptics because they want to see the business case, which is understandable, and we should accept that, right? And I do know, I do recognize myself, and as a shipbuilder on the PEO side, right? I certainly get all that, right? But I also do know that in times it can be tough to do that in terms of placing a somewhat precise dollar value on the value of the transition of R&D work. Even though it's hard, though, it's still important. And I'm actually happy to report, from discussions with my team that's involved, right, that I think NSRP has made progress in this area. And I appreciate the work that you've done on the business cases. And so in particular, my team has personally witnessed and talked to me about, they see NSRP with an increased focus on the ways to demonstrate and quantify the program's overall value. They recently, NSRP was able to develop a quantifiable return on investment for several projects and to begin development of a more concrete and quantifiable ROI plan, which I think is great. And I also understand that a draft ROI guidance document was developed by the executive board, for the executive board rather, and for NAVC program management review, and that's being looked at now with the goal of incorporation into future work. So I think that that's all great progress. I think that you need to continue this work. Part of my speech today is maybe to give you some advice and some thoughts as well. So I guess the last one I'll touch on the business case return on investment aspect is that, I think for NSRP to convince even more some of the skeptics out there that when you are able to show the ROI and you're able to achieve what you projected when you started the project, right? Probably PEOs and resource sponsors might be more involved partners, and if they were able to see those savings evident in contract bids. So there's nothing like a basis of estimate coming in on our proposals that maybe says, hey, on a prior ship's, we're estimating this by foot of weld or by, ton of steel. And, through our work in NSRP, we've made some improvements to the welding process, or we've reduced scrap rate or whatever. And because of those advancements, we are taking our cost estimating relationship and we are lowering it by X amount. And as a result, we are factoring, Y dollars into our bid. And so maybe some of the yards have done that. I obviously don't see all the bids, so I'm not saying it's not happening at all, but I do think that if that happened more often, the business case would get pretty easy, right? And the BOEs, those are important, that's bottom line, but there's other areas too, right? To be able to say that, hey, we took these savings and we were able to put that funding back into CapEx, those kinds of things, right? And I think if we're able to continue down the path that you're on and to think about that, then, the skeptics will become convinced. But as I said, I fundamentally believe in the value of R&D in this area. So, along those lines, I will say that particularly for my perspective as PEO USC, we've been impressed with several of the recent achievements and the progress of NSRP. And I got some general ones, and I'll talk about a couple of things specific on LCS, our active shipbuilding program. So first, I know that NSRP updated its strategic investment plan in January 2020. And I think that plan had last been updated several years prior. And I know for us that part of that plan included language to focus panel investments, looking at topics regarding large and small unmanned platforms. And I'm going to talk more about unmanned as I go along here. Also, we've seen a continued emphasis on a means of tracking implementation. This kind of gets to the ROI and the savings in the BOE, as well as communicating where investments are providing a payoff to our shipyards and our repair yards by extension, our shipbuilding and ship repair programs. And that's important. And finally, I think my folks believe that we've seen an increase in collaboration between shipyards, repair shipyards, via NSRP, and we're happy to see that. Specifically for PEO USC, particularly the LCS shipbuilding program, we definitely have been beneficiaries of NSRP. Both of our LCS shipbuilders, Ulster USA and Lockheed Martin, Fincantieri Marinette Marine, specifically as the shipbuilder, have been active members. Projects that have been of particular value, I think, to us, and particularly to Marinette Marine and to Austal, have included friction stir welding projects related to that, weld shrinkage and distortion allowance data model, leveraging detail design and weight engineering, ship structural design implementation, a project called Lift Ship, really designed to help optimize the way that you do module turning and lifting and support structure and all that, advanced mobile test platform, shipbuilder design courses, and LED light projects. And those are just a few of the ones that I know our team has seen be directly applied to LCS. And I'd say that the LCS projects alone show the breadth of NSRP, because if you think about that list, it covers structures, it covers welding, it covers design, it covers training, it covers outfitting, and it covers production processes and equipment. And so that's really impressive work, and I think it's paid a lot of dividends to the cost efficiency actually that the LCS shipbuilding program has continued to achieve, with hours continuing to come down ship by ship. So I appreciate all of that work, and I appreciate all of the work of the NSRP panels. So thank you. So for additionally, in my remarks today, there's a couple of areas that I hope to share some thoughts with you and give you some my personal insights. First, I'd like to maybe set the stage a little bit on what's going on at PEOUSC and to give you an update on our general priorities and how they kind of relate to NSRP. The second, as I was thinking about this, is to give you some broader thoughts and just Casey Moton's view of what I see in the shipbuilding and ship repair world, kind of big rocks and beyond just PEOUSC, and maybe how they bear onto NSRP. And that's kind of part two. And then the third part, the last part, will be I've got some specific areas that I think that you should at least think about, right, in terms of moving forward. Some of them directly relevant to USC, others broader topics. So the first of those three is going to be the PEOUSC efforts and priorities. So I'll just kind of give everyone a quick rundown, just to level load you where you are. So we are still continuing the LCS build program. We are actually near the end. We only have one ship. All the ships at Marinette have started fabrication. There is one ship left at Austell that hasn't, and actually is pretty close. And in fact, it's probably very close. So we are just about to be at the point of having started fabrication on all of the LCSs, and the last ship delivers in fiscal year 24. But so that being said, we're still building and we're still taking hours of the ship, and so NSRP is still relevant. But I gave you examples of where it has been very relevant to the program. For frigate, obviously very exciting for the Navy, Constellation class frigate program. We awarded that contract last year to Fincantieri Marinette Marine. The program is in the detailed design phase and preparing for production. And that's all, typically a lead ship, always hard enough, always looking for a vigorous, good learning curve on the shipbuilding program. And I think, so I absolutely see the work that NSRP does being very, very relevant to the frigate design and build process. And I know we're already using the tools. And there's some other interesting things going on. Frigate, the released version of the shipbuilding plan, 30-year plan, certainly would have us bringing on a second source to build frigate. Obviously, I think, as you're all aware, the new administration is taking a look at that and the priorities going forward. So we'll see how that happens before the PB22 budget goes to the Hill. But, certainly look forward to building a lot of frigates and a lot of interesting challenges there. And so I think NSRP is going to be directly relevant. USVs, UUVs, a ramp up. I'm going to talk more about that, but just a lot of work coming in USVs and UUVs. And, maybe still some discussion, obviously, with Congress, and a lot of it played out this week with the release of the unmanned campaign plan and hearing yesterday. But, Congress is pretty clear that they're not saying no to unmanned, that they see this future. I think that they probably share this vision that CNO has laid out in this NAV plan of a hybrid fleet of manned, unmanned. We're having a lot of discussion of how many, how fast, what's the system engineering plan look like to get there, and what types of missions. And all of that is great discussion, is important on the program end, but for the purposes of NSRP, right, I think it's fair to say that we're going to build a fair number of UUVs and USVs. At the same time, we have the whole advent of AI and machine learning, which is directly relevant to unmanned vessels, but also is a much broader topic that I'm going to touch on at the end. So the fourth thing for PEOUSC is sustainment. We had many LCSs on the piers and deploying and underway, and so we are really in full swing there. conducting the LCS sustainment efforts for the class. And Frigate, we are doing a lot of planning up front for sustainment. So as NSRP touches that, there's a lot going on. And then LCS, big modernization packages coming up with lethality and survivability. We're getting the Naval Strike Missile on now, and so lots to go there. So I think, that's just purely, kind of the USC parochial perspective. But, as I think about what's going on in the broader industry, again, to sort of relate it to what you're doing, I mean, I think this is a really exciting time to be working on our Navy, and whether it's on the government side or working on industry, and exciting time to be a shipbuilder or a ship designer or somebody that's doing repair to ships. And, multiple things going on that I kind of see all coming together that make your work so critical. So the first is obviously, got to be without saying, great power competition, right? Great power competition, really probably certainly in my career, early on in the Cold War, the shift to the war on terror, but great power competition in a truly different category with near peer competitors out there. And what we're doing to prepare for this, potential, this current and potential spectrum of competition there is very important. And, I'm not going to make this purely a strategy speech because I do have some specifics I want to talk to, but great power competition is driving distributed maritime ops for the Navy. It's driving the future service combatant force. And all of those are key. And they make the work that you're doing so important. And from a POUSC end, we have the small service combatant frigate, such a big piece of that. USV, two legs of that future service combatant force, LUSV, MUSV, and then of course the large service combatant work as well. I talked about the hybrid fleet. That's clearly at this top level that I'm trying to draw you even beyond just our PEO, USVs and UUVs, growth to numbers in the plan. The 30-year shipbuilding plan, talks about a range of 143 to 242 USVs and UUVs. So you have this big effort there, right? Unmanned campaign plan obviously released yesterday, which is a great document that sets the overall Navy framework for how we're going to proceed in fielding these vessels, obviously well beyond what we're doing on the acquisition side as well. Continuing with this kind of big picture look, you have other new classes besides frigate, classes that aren't POUSC programs to support great power competition. Specifically, I'm thinking of the next generation logistics ship, light amphibious warship. So those are important. Beyond the GPC, providing that capacity capability, you've also got major recapitalization going on. So GPC, now you've got recapitalization. Columbia is obviously the prime example of that, most important party for the Navy in acquisition. We have other areas where it's not as much talked about in the auxiliary worlds, right? We're building the new TATS as an example. In the design world, you have two new, two ship designs out there in the future that everybody should be thinking about as how are we going to best design those, DDGX and SSNX. So, those are going to be just huge players. So you've got all that going on. Beyond the Navy, the Coast Guard, we work closely with the Coast Guard and stay in sync, a lot of lessons learned back and forth. The Coast Guard, as you know, is in the middle of a major recapitalization. Probably, I think, safe to say, their biggest ever, at least in modern times, the Polish security cutter, the finishing national security cutter work, offshore patrol cutter, fast response cutters, waterways commerce cutters. So a lot going on there. So, in the work of shipbuilding, between the GPC and the recapitalization that is happening with the Navy and the Coast Guard and the growth of the unmanned fleet to hybrid fleet, it's just a huge amount of work. And all of that work, is on top of the current fleet that has to be sustained, but also all those ships are going to hit the fleet. So, what you are doing is just so important. And at the same time, as all this is happening, great power competition And recapitalization, we have multiple technological revolutions going on, all kind of tied to, this as we head into this next phase of the information age. You have unmanned and autonomy. I talked about that. Certainly the autonomy aspects are a big piece of that and are a new skill that we have to work with in ship design and shipbuilding. AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, talk about some thoughts there, but that's just this major technological revolution. New weapons, directed energy, hypersonics that have to be integrated with ships, designed into ships. Virtualized combat systems, which change the game of how we're going to field and modernize combat systems. So I know NSRP has a panel that looks at flexibility. Are we looking at how that's going to change how we design and build ships in the future, moving with the virtualized systems? And also that is a game changer on how we're going to modernize ships. And then the other big piece, technological revolution to hit on is just the huge improvement in networks, communications, and information, and the revolution that will be Project Overmatch, which really is going to tie all this together. But so, it might, and then, all of this is extremely exciting, but at the same time, it comes with continued pressure on the national budgets, the defense budget. We have infrastructure to recapitalize, COVID impacts that we're dealing with still, and coming out of COVID. So, at the end of it, I see, at this big strategic picture, GPC and all the efforts that's driving, these major recapitalization efforts, the technological revolution that's happening, the pressure on the resources, all of that together makes it a pretty challenging but exciting time to be in NSRP and to be a shipbuilder, ship designer, ship repairer in general. And so hopefully that all makes you actually excited and enthusiastic. And it certainly does me, because it's a great time, an exciting time with lots of challenges and opportunities in the industry. So, I wanted to close here with just a few comments on things that you should consider. This isn't, obviously it's not direction, not that I could do that if I wanted, but it's just some thoughts, right? So first, the core work that you're doing in NSRP is important. It's extremely important. So, the things you're doing on welding, production processes, coatings, design process, all of that is still critical. So the fact that I have some ideas doesn't take away from that core work. And looking at the list of projects, we're doing great work in that, right? But a couple of areas I did want to talk about, right? So the first is involvement, right? I think that we should think about who's involved in NSRP. We have really a new and expanded industrial base that's going to support unmanned. As we've developed our unmanned IDIQ contracts, we have multiple contracts going on for LUSV design. We have prototypes being built at different yards. Shipbuilders are involved, AI, more automation type companies, design companies, right? We have the nature of the size of the unmanned vessels, particularly in the USVs, makes it more likely that sort of the lower tier, smaller yards are able to build those in concert with some of the big companies, and all that's extremely exciting, right? I think that we, as we should look, and NSRP should look at, how do we get those companies and yards involved more, right? Many of them have leaner operations, maybe minimal admin overhead, which could be a challenge for them to be involved. But I think if you brought them on, it would only make things more robust, right? And so I think that that's something that really NSRP should think about. And it goes for UUVs as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about UUVs specifically next. So unmanned, how does NSRP adjust for this unmanned revolution? Well, for USV production and design, the fundamental ship construction is probably going to be pretty similar. There are things that we're doing, like unmanned autonomy architecture, to help us better design the ships and to have an upgradable architecture for the autonomy pieces that are certainly relevant. We're doing a lot of interesting things with flexible payloads for unmanned vessels. Again, I know NSRP looks at that. That's all relevant and should continue. I'll say right now, I think NSRP should think about UUVs, right? And there's different classes. I'm probably thinking more about the extra large diameter, the deep diving ones, the bigger ones that have kind of more of a production process. The smaller ones, maybe not as directly applicable, but for instance, UUVs, XL and LD, we're working a lot with industry on pressure vessel design and fabrication, different materials, material property testing, steps everywhere in the process we see that building and testing pressure vessels could benefit from, sub vendors mixed in. And many of these companies are not necessarily directly involved, although you do have some of the bigger companies that have made some acquisitions that get them in this field, right? And who you are. But should we be branching out and looking at UUVs? Should NSRP maybe evolve its mindset beyond the traditional shipbuilding programs? Think about these kind of aspects that I brought up in USVs and UUVs, and how are you positioned to be able to best achieve our mission? As this total range of 143 to 242, at least under the previous administration's vision for the total force architecture. As of course the Biden administration is looking at that, but how do we best make ourselves better able to handle those challenges? So I don't know precisely the right solution, but I think you need to think about it and you need to work on it. So moving off of unmanned a little bit, sustainment, right? I think that every panel on NSRP, and I think most need to be thinking about sustainment. Every bit of work you're doing should be, how are we informing the shipbuilding process, but also how are we making the ship repair process better? And I say ship repair, but I really mean maintenance and modernization. So are we doing the right projects to improve the efficiency of planning yards and tools and processes? And I know by looking at the list, you have done several projects there. So that's great, right? From a sustainment perspective, a little bit more parochial, LCS hitting the fleet, as I mentioned. So anything that we could do in innovations to expedite the planning and the conducting of maintenance and repair and modernization for LCS, but certainly the whole fleet, I think that we should be focused on. Interesting things with Frigate Sustainment. A lot of great things that we're doing up front for Frigate. We're developing a readiness assessment model now. We're working out much earlier than we probably typically do on how we're going to sustain the ships. How can NSRP maybe interface with some of those efforts, understand where we're going, and maybe work so that our ship repair companies, the companies that are going to do modernization for us, are better able to position and to be able to leverage the work that we're doing now on Frigate. The next topic, and just a couple more, surge capability, right? In terms of our preparation for potential armed conflict. Obviously, we all hope it doesn't happen, but we need to be ready if it does, right? And as an individual company, what are you doing to be able to surge if we asked you to surge? How would we use smaller facilities and non-traditional shipbuilders to help step in and to do maybe portions of modules, portions of steel work, specific work that we need them to do? Maybe we have to do it in their facilities. Maybe we have to bring workers who were producing something else and now we need them to work shipbuilding. Are there things that NSRP can do in terms of data and production processes to make that easier to happen? I think you should be looking at that. It kind of goes with it, but in several programs, I would say Frigate included, we have build strategies that are now stepping across multiple yards, right? We have, as I mentioned, at least under the current 30-year plan, the Frigate second source. So we have other programs that already successfully use two sources, DDG program, Virginia, right? So are there things that NSRP can continue to do to make that multi-yard process, whether it's under one prime or whether it's a two source, to make that more efficient? The last one I want to talk about is artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? This is I have a data company or an AI ML company coming to see me probably, I don't know, at least once every couple of weeks. And hopefully they're coming to see you too. because I see, are we really looking at the potential that AI and using big data is going to play in the shipbuilding, ship repair process? And you have some efforts going on in NSRP in the digital area, 3D scanning, digital models of ships, scan drawings, using your CAD CAM tools and improvements there in the digital area. Some AI projects in terms of virtual reality for training, for repair assistance, but I'm talking about beyond that. I'm talking about using AI ML to revolutionize how you do your work at the shipyard, right? Using AI ML to look at your production order data, your EVMs, all the data you're getting back from production to help with your planning process, looking at your machines and, can you do condition-based maintenance or change the way you do maintenance, looking at purchasing. And I'm not really talking about robotics automation. I'm talking about AI ML. I did a quick web search and prep for this, and I didn't find a whole lot out there. I only went a couple of pages down. I found a few academic papers. I searched for shipbuilding, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data. I found a couple of academic papers. There's one company out there, I won't say who, that's certainly advertising a product to help bring AI ML into the planning and work of the shipyards. And that's great. I found, South Korea talking about an effort, right? But have you all really thought about the promise here? And I think that this should be a major focus that you're looking at. I'm not talking about making your planning departments going away, right? I'm talking about making your planning departments better and more efficient and saving all of us funding. So, to me, out of all the things I talked about, this is the one that, one of the ones that I'm really most excited about and that I think that you should definitely pursue and be looking at. So, that's it. Hopefully, at closing, I kind of have set the stage for you. I wanted to thank you up front that I did. I talked about the LCS priorities. I talked about this, great power competition plus recapitalization plus technological revolution plus constrained resources and how that makes it so important what you're doing. And I've given you some ideas, on at least my perspective, on areas that you should be thinking about, right? Unmanned, sustained, multi-yard builds, AI ML. I hope that's helpful. I just finally close by thanking you again for all of the work that you do as NSRP for your industry and for the nation, and all of the work that your shipyards do, again, whether it's on the repair side or the production side and the design side. I am truly proud to be part of this team, and I wish you all the best. And I hope you have a great few days and look forward to more great things to come from NSRP. Thank you very much.